I'm with the Lacroix Cruiser. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be cleaning this up a little bit. If you remember when we first got this truck, it had a fiberglass cap on the back of it. Not a fan of that. Now, our previous truck had this homemade metal rack on the back of it. And when we first got that truck, our intention was to get rid of that homemade metal rack. Then we started using the truck and saw just how useful it was. So today, I'm going to be putting that old metal rack back on this truck, but with a few modifications. Stay tuned, we'll show you how we did it and explain why we're doing the things as we're going along. Here's that old metal rack that was on the back of the F150 that we had. Both an 8-foot box, so that works out well. Now, what we'll be doing, first of all, is getting rid of these posts sticking up. They're just a little too much. We don't need those. So they're at the four corners. And when they had put this together, they had great intentions of bolting it together. As we can see here, there's a bolt. But then they put on this metallic grid, which is great. But they welded it to the uprights. Not the best of ideas for us. So what I'm going to be doing is separating this apart. Now, the other thing that they did was they just had it bolted to the bedside. Not what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to make it so it's, first of all, easy to remove. Secondly, give us more tie-down points and not bolt through the top of the bed. Now, our bed rails have had things bolted to them before. I don't want to add any additional. We look along these bed rails, we can see that there's been all sorts of things screwed to them in the past. Big holes, small holes, many holes. When we get to be doing the body work on this, I'll be filling all these holes. But the holes that interest us today are these stake pockets. We'll be using the stake pockets to hold that in. As we're using these stake pockets to hold this in, notice this hole that's here. What we'll be doing with that hole is actually putting a hook in there so that when we do want to tie things down in the bed, we'll have access to tie it down to the bed, making it a lot easier. And it's that hook that will be holding everything in place in the bed. So making our lives a little easier, making the truck easier to change if we need to take that rack off the back of the truck, well, we'll be able to. Follow along, let's see how we do this. I'm sure some of you are going to tell me that I should be cutting this on the flat. I really don't know. So tell me in the comments, what's the right way to do this? So now that we have these 6 pieces of flat bar, these are going to go down into the stake pocket, and they'll be what's holding this onto that. Inside the stake pocket, this will be going there. That rack will actually be welded to this, and using one of these, we'll screw into the side of the post to hold this into place. At the same time, this is going to give us another good anchorage point as a tie down, things like that. So it'll be a much nicer system for us. we'll be able to hold things in the box. These aren't in the way of loading and unloading, and we'll have our nice rack being held on. When we want to remove the rack, we simply undo these, lift the rack out. I'm going to be doing a little marking here. So first of all, we need to find the center line of the stake pocket and the flat portion, because there's corners of it, the round corners. But the flat portion is 1 5/8 inches. We have 1.5 inch, or we have 1.5 inch flat bar. So we need to find the center of this. So it's a little past 3/4 inch. And let's bring a line to the edge here. Then measure down. Now there's a brace inside this stake pocket that is 3 inches down. So we want to avoid that because we don't want to be drilling through 2 pieces of steel when we can only drill through, when we only have to drill through 1. And the hole here is 2.5 inches down. And it's actually too high because of the area under the bed rail. We can't turn that turnbuckle. So what we're going to be doing, this hole, we're going to have to just squeeze it down a little bit. The other ones will go at 2 3/4. That will give us enough that we can turn this buckle with ease. So if I line this up, so I go there, put the buckle so that I can turn it, give it 1/8 inch, just for good measure, and that puts us at 2 7/8 down at the center. So we'll say 3 inches down at the center. We should be good to be able to turn this buckle with ease. That means we have to go 3 inches down, which unfortunately will put us in that little cross brace. So that's life, but that is what it is. There's that one at 3 inch. I'll go down, mark the other 2. My pencil is 3/4 inch. My pencil is 1/4 inch in diameter, so I've set this to 2 7/8. That's made my mark left to right. Then I'll go a little deeper, set it 1/8 off. There you go. I have my mark there. This one, like I said, the hole, we just need to expand the hole down a little bit. Going to do that with a die grinder. And in the future, when we go to repaint this truck, I'll actually reinforce this and fill the hole in and then drill another one at the right location. This factory hole is just a little too tall to be able to turn in that turnbuckle. Let me go mark the other side, and then we'll drill some holes. On these parts, I'm going to go up 2.5 inches from the end. Mark that, and then mark the center and drill some 1/2 inch holes in here. And then I'm going to weld nuts on the back side for them to go down and be held in. By having the hole at 2.5 inches, this gives me the 5.5 inches that I want inside. Now we'll need a bit of grinding on that end, not a big deal. That is where it was cut from the factory. And we'll set this to 3/4 inch. And we'll drill some 1/2 inch holes. Pilot holes are in, change the drill bit, and we'll do the larger size. That's all the holes drilled. Now to go weld some nuts on there. Have the nut centered in the hole. Make sure my helmet is back on grind, or on weld, I should say. There we go. The light isn't flashing inside, so I know. Let's weld the nut on. Go put this in the truck, see if it fits. Now it's as far as it goes because we have the other side of the stake pocket holding us back. So what I'm going to do at this point is measure this distance, and that tells me how much I need to cut off of these bolts to have them go in. Now on the other side here, inside this stake pocket, there's a shallow area there. And a couple different ways of attacking this. The way I'm going to be doing it is I'm going to actually be welding on a connector nut to this piece and then cutting off the connector nut to the right length so that the connector nut is up against the back of this hole and this piece is up where it needs to be amongst the two stopping points. That way I'm not going to be bowing it in the center and I'm not going to be pulling on this. Everything's going to be nice and tight. So this one can go in here. But two of them, like I said, I need to weld some connector nuts on and then cut the connector nuts off afterwards to the right length. That right length should be about 1 inch. So we'll go cut the connector nuts to 1 inch, weld them on, put this on, measure, see how much of a gap we have, and then slowly grind the connector nut down till we have the right distance. take a look, see how it fits. Just happens that this ruler is 1 inch, so it'll give me a nice place to start. And this helmet, by the way, has a grinding aspect to it. Nice thing to have. I'd rather leave a little too much than not enough. We'll go see how it fits inside the hole. Once we have that figured out, we'll grind it back, and we might be able to use that connector nut that I slopped off there to be able to do the other one, but I'd rather measure twice than cut once. I need to take about 1/8 of an inch off. If I tilt it back to hit the bottom part of this, I've got about 3/16 of an inch. And what looks level, about 1/8. So let me go cut 1/8 off of this. I'll be right back. There we have it. Now I'll be able to tighten this down one little quarter turn more, and that will get everything nice and tight where we need it. Or I'll put a washer on this side to allow me just to space a little bit. The washer might actually be a great idea there. So there we go. This one's in, ready to go. We have 5 more to do. We'll be back after that. Next step, cut these welds off, because I want to separate the sides from the back piece, and the back piece will modify it so that it fits in nicely and can be bolted in instead of welded in. So if we ever have to take this off, we can take off one part at a time. Seems to be all cut off. What I'm going to do is put it back standing upright, cut off those excessive little nubs at the top, and then we'll separate this. We can see that it's already coming apart. We'll unbolt it. Hopefully the bolts come off. If not, we'll have to cut those off as well and continue on. Since I have a feeling they might put up a fight, let's give ourselves a fighting chance. It always helps. There we go. Separated. Now getting ready to be put back together. Time for a test fit. So this will go in here. This will technically hold it in place. The edges don't want to play well together, so we'll just flush out the threads. There's that one. Let's go to the next one. So far, so good. So hopefully you can see where I'm going with this now. And then the pieces that we just cut apart will actually sit right here on the inside. Now I'm going to space them up a 1/4 inch. And the reason for the 1/4 inch is eventually we'll have caps on here. We'll be painting the truck in bed liner and we'll be painting that in bed liner. So I want to give myself enough space to make it easy. Now, the reason I'm putting the bed rail caps on it, this is really beat up. As you saw, there are a lot of holes in here, and I don't want to be doing a lot of body work. Of course, I'm going to fill the holes, get rid of the rust, but all the dents and stuff, they're well hidden with one of those nice caps, and I like the look of them. So that's where we're going with that. But in the meantime, this will be nice and solid. I can move the whole truck with it. So that's where we want to be. Let me get the other ones installed, and then we'll start working on the rack. Next step is prepping this to be attached to that. First, I'm going to take off those little nubs that are there, then flip it over and measure, where the weld is going to go on the back of this. Off we go. I've marked off where I need to grind off the rust, the paint, etc. for us to weld that onto those stakes that are sticking up. I guess my marker wasn't as dark as I thought it was. Now we're ready to weld this to that. Just have to get it up on the truck, get some spacers in place, and we'll be ready to go. Next step, getting it in place. I have my spacers on the bed. And we'll just align it with the corner of the bed itself. And put a clamp on it to hold it in place. And then I'll be able to tack weld it where it needs to be. Once it's tack welded, I'll take everything off the truck and go back in and weld it up permanently. So that's what it's going to look like, and it's not too much higher than the top of the truck. Before, with those spikes hanging out, it was a lot higher than the top of the truck. So now we'll have it more low profile. The battery is disconnected on the truck, so no need to worry about that. And this one looks a little crooked to me. It might be straight actually, but because of this, it might not actually be straight, so we'll get everything square so it looks better before welding it in place. Yeah, my eyes were not playing trick on me. We'll give a little adjustment tool here. There we go, that's looking square. It's even at the end, which is where I want it, and we can start welding it up. Don't want to weld too much on the truck, so like I said, I'm just going to tack it in a couple places so I know that it holds, then we're good to go. Should be more than enough to hold it for now. Let's move these clamps down to the next position and weld that one. Take it back off of the truck, bring it over there, we can weld it all up. one side all welded up, ready to be sanded, painted, all that fun stuff. But we'll get the other parts done, and we'll meet you back when everything's ready. Decided to call it a night. The two sides are now attached to the truck, and I still have the headache rack to rebuild. I have to shrink it just a little bit to fit in place, so we'll be doing that in the next video. Now, if you like this content, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas, please leave them below. Always happy to answer, and we'll see you in the next of fixing instead of financing an old F-150. Thanks. See you soon.